T-minus 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Launch Sequence Podcast. We got another week of chatter for you. Some space game news, some Star Citizen talk, potentially a little bit of drama. I have brought in longtime friend of the podcast, friend of the channel, and Star Citizen YouTuber Morphologis to chat about the goods and the bads of Star Citizen right now. What's going on? Where are we headed? What are the big topics? You know, we've got 4.10 coming soon. We're seeing new ships being talked about coming out. People really want the game to be fixed, and that is somewhat happening. But it's still rough, and Star Citizen Live had a rough time recently. So we're going to talk about all that, what's been going on, what to expect with Genesis and Planet Tech coming up, and the rest of the year. And honestly, just your thoughts as somebody who's been covering this for a long time. If you guys would like to skip ahead, of course, as always, we're marking chapters down below so you can. Otherwise, Morph, how have you been?
I've been good, man. I mean, personally, I've been good, but independent of Star Citizen, we've got a lot to talk about tonight.
Yeah, we do.
Subject.
A whole bunch to talk about. How, outside of Star Citizen, how is you don't have to say more about this than you feel comfortable, but I bet a lot of people are wondering, how's architect life treating you?
It's been going really well. Our team over here has expanded to become bigger. We started off as a pretty small studio, actually, of around it's been hovering around 3 to 4 people for a long time, and we've been doing a lot of projects with that many. So it's a bit of an overload, but now we're up to 10 people. We've got a lot of really solid projects, constant projects rolling in one after the other. They're overlapping, which is the best kind of thing you want to have for a firm. And we're doing a lot now of big developer projects, so multi-story residential buildings, which definitely aren't the most fun for architecture, but certainly are bread and butter, paying bills to keep people in the studio. I think that's really made the difference in terms of the design stuff. I'm really satisfied, despite the struggles of dealing with developers. Our clients are usually pretty good. I mean, there's not very many instances where it's really bad where they change something last second. But budgets are budgets, and there's a there's an unfortunate culture in Taiwan of design kind of being lower on the totem pole, lower in consideration. For these, most of the time when you see things going up, it's they'll design the structure, the floor plan. They'll do all of the, make sure all the regulations meet. And then after all of that's done, then they'll do the design. So what you often get as a result is very similar looking buildings, because all of them have the structure on the outside, perfectly box shaped buildings, and rooms with the core in the middle. And that's it. All of them the same, with decorations on the outside. So it's very superficial. And we try to take a different approach where all of that happens from the get-go. We're thinking about the design simultaneously to meeting regulations, which is not obviously the easiest way to do things, but it gets the best results, we think. And one of our more recent projects, I think, kind of proved that. Our recently completed project sold out the second day it went out and it became available for the public to purchase units in the building.
Nice.
A lot of residential buildings in Taiwan are condoed out. So individual units are sold, and then those will be rented out.
I see. Well,
a lot of times on the internet. So.
I like to think that things that are, looking pretty, things is good. I like things that look pretty, especially buildings. So I appreciate that approach.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And I know it's fun, and professionally in architecture, I'm very happy and satisfied with where things are going. I wish I could say the same for YouTube and Twitch. I guess we're going to unpack that tonight as we discuss the many topics that you've laid out.
Well, you got to be thankful for working on your architecture work and never falling through the planet in the middle of it. Just you're always right there, able to work on it, which is nice.
True.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
On that note, Star Citizen, on the other hand, it's been having an interesting year, I'll say. I think many people would use different words to describe that. And today people are probably expecting some heavy complaining and whatnot, but I actually also want to acknowledge some of the things that have been going well this year in terms of like the long term of the game. One of the biggest things I want to start out this talk with you is actually not at all what I expected to start out with, but I'm just kind of feeling it. We've done this talk quite a few times over the years. I would say at least the last 4 years, maybe. And in that time, you've had like a lot of ups and downs with the game, feelings about it. And I think it was probably the CitizenCon 2023. At the end of that show, at the beginning of that show, you weren't feeling too great about the game. At the end of the show, you were feeling like they had some level of an idea where they were heading, what they were like trying to do with the game, and getting specific things into players' hands to make interactions feel better.
Right.
If you felt like at that time, at the end of that show, you were at a 5 out of 10 on your confidence in Star Citizen and their ability to get this game to be released as something solid, something worthwhile, where would you put your confidence right now?
I mean, I think it's lower. It's like 3 out of 10 at the moment. And if you go back to that podcast, now I've got a 64 kilobyte memory, so I can't guarantee that I remember this is exactly what I said.
64 whole kilobytes, bro?
Yeah, as my wife reminds me sometimes, because she has to remind me. I've got a low memory. Anyway, what I remember what I said is that I was really like happy with the direction, and I said something along the lines of it all comes down to the execution in the next few months. Like, let this first and second patch, moving in, how many of these things are we going to see? And now 2 years out from that, they've unfortunately not executed on almost all of the things they talked about. Like some of the stuff they showed off at that CitizenCon, yes, we've got, but I would say some of the most important things that they showed off, we don't have. Some really basic stuff like social tools. So it feels like, they have a plan, but they're still not able to execute on that plan. That's my sense of things. At least not effectively or expeditiously. Everything seems to be drawn out super slowly. And I just like, for example, the social tools, I was just thinking about this the other day, like maybe yesterday. Clearly, 2 years is more than enough time to create social tools. So the only explanation for why they're not done is that they've not been working on them. They've been working on something else. And what have they been working on? What have they been working on, guys?
The block button.
So,
yeah,
the block button, right? Yeah. So I mean, like, it's like again, repeating myself over and over and over and over again every single time we do this, and it's not an excuse for them to say it's Squadron 42's fault. I'm not making an excuse for them, but it is Squadron 42's fault, is the feeling that I get, because there's no way they could have spent 2 years developing social tools and not gotten anything done yet.
So at the beginning of this year, and here's I think it's probably closer to like 8 kilobit memory for everything else besides Star Citizen, I guess. But at the beginning of the year, I remember Benoit was saying that they hadn't been working on it. They had some back-end folks working on it last year, but the efforts, it sounded like, only started at the beginning of this year, at least from the way he was talking in their Star Citizen Live with Jared in February. But even then, it is still kind of weird that they had that, and they had all of their concepts down, all the stuff that they thought they were going to do. And then he said they were getting a strike team together to work on it, but then some 6 months after that happened, or 5 months after that moment, we got a survey to everybody asking what they want to see in their social tools. And a lot of people have different opinions of why that survey went out. What are your thoughts? If they already showed us all the things they want to do with social tools, why do you think they put the survey out to ask about what we want to see?
I don't know. I think they just wanted to get a feel out for what the community wants at the moment. Clearly, I think that's more of a reveal for what's going on internally. If they're asking that kind of question, they probably don't have the same plan that they had outlined for themselves 2 years ago after that CitizenCon. Whatever meetings they had back then no longer apply now. I don't know what reasons that might be for. I have several theories about what that could be. But clearly, I think the reality is that whatever plans they had did not come to fruition, and they're now rethinking what they want to focus their limited resource, what I suspect are limited resources on. They get the most bang for the buck for the limited amount of developers they can put on Star Citizen.
Mm-hmm. Social Tool is a really interesting one, and a really annoying one to me. I mean, I think I've made it very clear how much I just want to be able to talk to people in the new PTU. It's working pretty well, and that might be because of the server counts, but it is definitely it's enjoyable to hear other people talking and just like ask them a question and then they respond, and you're like, wow, this is suddenly it's kind of a social game. And
yeah, I mean, here's the kicker of it all. If you really think about this, I mean, once we have social tools, is anybody going to be like logging in every day saying, damn, I'm logging in because we have social tools? Oh my God, guys, social. No, it's just like,
dude,
at the end of the day, the social tools, they're just social tools. Like, they were so important. I'm not trying to undercut the importance of social tools. What I'm trying to say is, like, it's such a basic thing for a game to have, like being able to have guilds, being able to have chats with your friends, having a functioning friend system, have functioning voice chat, like all that stuff. It's so basic. And once that stuff is there, it doesn't make the game any more complete than it already is. It's still got so many problems, as the CL revealed. So, like, we're not even sitting at like a baseline of a good place to be to build off of at that point yet, because there's so many other things they have yet to pull together. Like, we still don't even have functioning player to player trading. And now we have like tons of like blueprints now and resources. Like, the game is becoming more and more primed for the potential of having a trading system, and yet that's not even been discussed. We don't have a trading tool system or a commodity app on our mobile glass to be able to check commodity prices and that sort of thing. Like, we can't even search for where things are to buy them in the game. We have to rely on third-party software, third-party websites in order to do that. It's just Star Citizen after 15 years is in a ridiculous place. Yeah, Squadron 42 is the excuse, but I hate that excuse. You know?
Agreed.
You can tell the tone of me so far probably isn't super positive. We're going into this.
I want to go back to something that you said, that nobody's going to hop in every day just because they got social tools. And I don't want to make a bigger deal out of social tools than they are. But I think part of what has made Star Citizen so popular over the years, also, I'm not saying this is a good thing, but it is those small steps forward that it constantly takes that keep people involved and interested, right? Like, any game that's in development is fun to follow because you get those little increments of progress that make it feel like things are moving forward. And so, to some extent, I do think that helps, and I think that it does actually change for some people out there, you know, maybe 1 out of the 1,500. But every single time something gets added, it's another 1 out of the 1,500 that's like, wait, this is a reason to jump in. I don't think you'd have games like Rust or DayZ be the games they are without social chat. Yeah, but you know,
but Tomato, like, because you can add people successfully to your friends list, because you can block people in chat, like, because you can maybe even see somebody's guild tag, are any of those reasons to log in? I would argue no. I think that they're necessary reason, like they're necessary parts of a video game, but they're not reason. Like, the thing that stuff enables over the long term is just like being able to have a more cohesive community to play together the video game, right? Yeah. But if the video game itself, the part that you play to have fun with, isn't done or ready yet, those social tools won't help much, because I think a lot, like, people have worked around this problem already. We have Discords. We use Discord to chat with each other. We use Spectrum. We've got Urkel to check out build outs. We've got like commodity, like a whole amazing community of like savvy devs who, like, independent developers who have created a whole commodity system that tracks the updates of each update for where commodities are, what their prices are, and all that. Like all that's been worked around already. It's just a pain in the butt to do because you have to, minimize Star Citizen to go use all this stuff. But once that stuff is in the game, it doesn't make the game we're playing right now, the game itself, any more fun. It just makes it more convenient and less of a pain in the butt. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to diminish the need to have it. It's like super high priority is a baseline for a game, but it doesn't make the game better. Like that needs to be done as well as making the game better. Yeah, you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. And then I also don't want to like place unnecessary focus on social. It's just freaking social tools. Like you said, it is a very simple thing. Exactly. But
it's so important. But it's not that important. It's simultaneously important and not important.
everything. We're talking about reasons to play the game, reasons to jump into the game, right? But most people are looking for reasons to stop putting it down. Like the people who play Star Citizen want the things that they already try to do to stop messing with them. And I think something as simple as it's a bug. Something as simple as being able to get into the game and like just ask the person next to you to let you join them to take on the new event going on is already one step to getting people to stay in the game more. So many people I'm sure
for sure
hear about something like Xenothread or Rockcrack or any of these things, jump in game, and then they're literally just like, what do I do? I can't talk to people. I can't do anything.
And I think the party search feature that they talked about is one of the big, I think that itself, it doesn't make the game better, but it makes the game easier for people who are newer and who don't already have communities to work or play with, right? So for those newer players logging on for the first time, they see a cool events going on. They don't know how to get into a group of people. They're like typing aimlessly in chat, trying to and they're getting drowned off by the garbage that often appears. Did my camera just go off again? No. There we go. Just come back.
Back on. It's frozen now. As it be.
It's frozen now.
Cameras
It's not frozen for me. Weird thing. It's not frozen for me. Like it's totally fine on my end, even through Video Ninja.
Okay. Well, keep going and I'll see if I can make the camera work on my end.
Okay. So like it helps, but then once you can communicate better and get into a friends group, then you still have all the other problems I talked about, all the other communication problems, the way the game communicates with you about the prices of things, where to get things, blueprints, like all this stuff is just so sporadically pieced together. And we're not even talking about like the underlying base code bugs of the game that have problems with things not functioning correctly. Even if things function perfectly, like the way things work together are just so haphazardly done. And so many of them waste so much of your time for, I would argue, no good reason. I'm sure somebody at CIG at some point thought that it was a good idea to do things the way they've done for example, how crafting is done in the blueprint system and the menu around blueprints. Somebody I'm sure thought that was a great idea. But the reality of stuff like that is it is a pain in the butt to use. As pretty as some of this stuff looks, it's just a pain to use. And I would argue, even if things like getting blueprints and resources were easy, it wouldn't make the game less fun. In fact, I think it would make it more fun because you're still going to spend a lot of time gathering resources. And now I haven't really explained where I'm coming from here. I'm sorry. I'm going off on a tangent without fully explaining what I'm talking about with the crafting system, which is no fault of anybody listening who doesn't understand what I'm saying. So yeah, to get back to it, like to the social tools, I think once they're in, we're just going to notice everything else that's missing from the game.
Sure.
Presuming the social tools are good, because who knows? And
just like, so that is one step amongst many that they need to get to 1.0. But I think there's a fine line that we bounce off of when we're talking about this game. Make the game work better. You got people who are like, stop adding content, stop adding features on top of a broken mess, fix what's there, make it work, and like prove that you can adequately code a functioning environment. Then you got people who are like, we need to get more of these systems in because the game it's not fun. There needs to be actual features that help make, like, one person would look at the idea of social tools as a new feature, right? To not be added because that's going to destabilize the game. Somebody else might look at social tools as them fixing the social tools that are already there. And so we end up seeing these conversations that pop up online where people are like, stop adding features. Other people are like, make sure this feature works. And by doing so, they're telling them to add a new feature. What do you think is the ultimate desire that people want? Do they want to just see the things that are already there fixed? Do they want to have this imaginary 1.0 in their hands? Or do they just want CIG to prove to them that they can release something that's not glitchy? Why is it always disconnected?
I think I have a unique perspective coming from the design field. One thing that I've discovered in the years I've worked in architecture, and now I've worked for quite a few years, it's hard to believe I'm getting older. The way years go by quick. Yeah, like an old man. Is that people don't know what they want until they see it. They often think they know what they want, but so a lot of the time when you show them what they wanted, it's not exactly what they thought they wanted. So for the developers, it's a hard thing to try to figure out. Sometimes polling the community for what they want will give you the wrong answer. I think a lot of developers at CIG, especially the more experienced ones, understand that. I feel like I've heard them even say something along those lines, or gave me the impression that they have that same perspective themselves. There is value, obviously, in polling the community to figure out what they want, but ultimately, the developers sometimes have to think more critically about what makes more sense to develop. Now, in my view, both things should be happening simultaneously. We should be both having bug fixing with an entire team dedicated to always fixing bugs and trying to keep the tech debt down, the bug debt down as far as possible with every patch, while you're simultaneously releasing new features. And yes, those new features will break the game, but and I've said this many times, I think, before in our previous podcasts, but we are 15 years into this and looking at other indie developers who've developed admittedly smaller scope games, what they've been able to do with far fewer resources and far fewer time, it just makes Star Citizen feel like it's constantly treading water. And I know there are a million different excuses you can make for why Star Citizen is in the place it is right now, why basic things aren't in the game or functioning. But at the end of the day, you look at the time, you look at the money, and this is why the perception of Star Citizen and the sentiment, my view on what the sentiment is right now from the community is the way it is because, there's no getting around how long it's been. There's no getting around how much money's been spent, and what the game's state currently is. So I can't sit here and make excuses for them. I think that what needs to happen is both needs to happen. We need to have bug fixing, things working, and things actually coming into the game to make the game a game. Because I firmly believe, and this is what I try to tell people all the time, is just think about if everything worked perfectly, how good is the game actually? It's actually not that good.
Well, it's hard to name because what's perfect? Are they supposed to tell me I killed their cousin this many times? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but we got to think about what really think critically. For example, the mission system. How many interesting missions are there with storylines that go from one story to the next? There's any. Nothing.
Yeah.
Barely any. How do you track, we already covered this. How do you track commodities? How do you trade? How do you find stuff to buy? How do you understand what your next thing to upgrade to is? It's
everything's
all this
outside
stuff
of the game.
It's outside of the game. It's so disconnected. There's tons of stuff behind the scenes happening because we follow development and we know all the things they've been doing. But all of it's so sporadic and disconnected, and there's still so many islands of features and content. Some of those have been connected to create peninsulas and archipelagos are still series of islands, but almost connected islands, right? They built little bridges between the islands, it feels like, and some of them are burning.
Isthmus, whatever it's called, the land bridge thing.
Land bridge, yeah. There's some. I would say they built some rickety wood bridges that are at some point burning between patches. They've not fully created a landmass that is Star Citizen, which we want to get to. That's the game, right? Where everything feels connected, correct? So I would argue, like, even if everything's perfect, the game is, people would look at it and say, what? What is this? You know, this is not what I expected would be. It's just that I think one of the funny things that bugs and issues with Star Citizen has done is that it kind of forces you to stop and imagine and think, man, if this would work, if that would work. And I think that over time gets confused in our minds with the potential and the actual game as it is now, the execution. They're not exactly connected. Like we have an idea of what they're going for, but in reality, that's not what it is right now. Get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, and I think that's by design. Doing the game like this allows people to fill in the space a lot for themselves and imagine what the game might be and stay more interested because of that.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of magicians not yet revealing their trick, if that makes sense. Like, once the magician reveals their trick, the trick is not as impressive. And that's, I'm not saying that this is a rug pull or something. I'm going that direction. I'm just saying, like, I think once they figure things out and they have a clear direction, people will be less interested. Like, say, for example, like the way they've done the medical system, right? It's far, I don't think it's reached anybody's expectations for the medical system, right?
No.
But before they had shared their ideas for what the medical system was going to be, how reviving was going to work, how the insurance system was going to work, and like item retrieval was going to work. Like, people had all these great ideas, all these interesting. We were talking endlessly about it, but now that they've done it, it's just so like, you know?
Yeah. It's crazy what happened with the medical gameplay, but it also is, everyone's going to have their own feelings about this game coming to fruition if it does, and how that is different from the plans and the ambitions and the stuff that's been said over all this time. It's not going to end up being the stuff that was talked about throughout all that time. And as we're seeing more and more things come online, I mean, we're talking here about the difficulties of the game right now and how disconnected it is. I know that your confidence in the game is less than it was back in 2023, but honestly, you take us back to 2023 and tell somebody to drop into the game to play it, and there's much less stuff to do. We have not very many good missions, like you said, that like will take a loose end and bring you further into the game or reveal more to you or have characters involved. But we do have stories for the first time. Back then, the only one we had was the Covalix mission. And
but I would say isolated stories that have little to no impact on players, which is a big problem, I think, for like the Melina Mold thing that they did, right? That storyline. Okay, cool lore stuff, but it doesn't actually affect any of us. You know, the closest they got to, I think, to affecting players with stories was the Ninetales lockdown of stations, where a station where you'd have to fight your way through to get. And I think that was a really cool concept. Not well executed, obviously. There were a lot of problems with it. But I think the idea of affecting players with an event instead of it being just this isolated thing that you can completely ignore was way more compelling. Like, I played WoW before, and when WoW would have an event, like I remember a long time ago they had that. I forget the name of the update. It was like the one with the dragon, and it was tearing up the main city, and like they actually had like the city being, it was slightly destroyed in that event. Like they would actually affect the world with that. It was Cataclysm. Yeah, Cataclysm. It would affect what mobs were outside of the city, which you would fight. Like you felt you were being impacted by the world's lore, the world's events as you played through the game. That's how I think events should be. That's how I think stories should be, is they should feel like you're a part of them. But I think the stories in Star Citizen, they just don't feel like we're a part of them. That's my feeling. Obviously, some other people could say could completely disagree, and I invite those disagreements. But I personally not feel as compelled with the way that they've been integrated into the experience. I think the ideas are good, but their integration into the experience are just not well executed. And I think that could come down to the fact that they just don't have enough people to develop the tech to make those more impactful than they are. It's a theory, but
well, I mean, you're talking about the events that they throw, like the Melina Mold stuff, but when I think of the Covalix Gundo mission as a good idea of, and maybe you don't even consider that to be a decent mission in the game before, but that was voice acting, somewhat of a mission.
That's a mission. That's not an event. Those are two separate things.
Yeah. So
I think missions are more. I see missions more personal experiences, like you following your own story in the world. Like there has to be that element. Missions are your own story, whereas events are the story of the world, right? They both have lore in them. They both impact you, but they both impact you in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
like when you're doing a mission, you want to feel like Twitch Pacheco is talking to you, and like you are the one that they wanted to do that mission, right? Like you were like, we saw what you've done. We think you can go to. It wasn't her giving the one to go to Kovalex, I know, but I'm just using her as an example. You want to feel like she's reaching out to you to do this because she knows you're capable of doing it. That's obviously, we're all gamers. We know it's all BS. It's like that's everybody has that same experience, but. Like there still needs to be an effort so you can kind of suspend the disbelief of, not think about, this is a video game. Everybody has the same experience. And just feel like you are the person, you are the character that's being spoken to and going through the things that you need to go through, right? As the mission side of things.
But when we talk about the things that you can jump into the game to do, compared to in 2023, you have a full 3-act story. I mean, the first act is always broken from Stormbreaker. But following that whole like Dr. Yorit sort of like alien xenology storyline, you have like a pretty solid storyline that takes you in 3 different star systems. It takes you through a solo dungeon. You get to have a little bit of a boss battle, voice recordings. I do think that is more of the stuff that this game needs. Not necessarily to say they need to get rid of like the sandbox, but they're, I think, getting better at creating things that a normal player can look at and say, well, this is a reason to at least try the game. And I do agree that a lot of times those might not make a difference to run, but if you're getting, a unique story or a different contact or some kind of reputation that can be built on for other missions, I do think that's healthy for the game.
Yeah, I agree. Talking about ASD, that was one of the best. I think that's one of the best set designs and storylines they've ever done. Absolutely. I don't want to dismiss that. I think it was really well done. I think it could have been a lot better with like more tech. Like I would like to see physical mission givers talking to us in the world, characters that we physically see. Dr. Dorit was always behind the scenes because they don't have the resources to make him appear. Like ideally you'd want to have seen him in that last section of the ASD facility, working on the Van Duel, sorry, spoilers. Right? Like that would have been a more ideal situation. Maybe he runs out of the room and you can't catch him, fine. But like actually seeing him and acting and being like, feeling like it's more of an immersive experience, I think that would have been more compelling and I think more competitive with other video games.
I agree. Yeah, it's still very disappointing that even with Recco Battaglia coming into the game, they're still kind of struggling to get that physical part of it working just because of the instancing and stuff. Because I do think that even beyond that kind of a difference, it would be nice to be able to find like a data pad that points you towards another contract that's not related while you're in that dungeon. Those kinds of things are also really nice. And I think that sounds a little bit more like what you're looking for in terms of something that leads to more growth for the player.
Yeah. And maybe this is just me, but I would like to see that coming more from NPCs rather than data pads. I would like to come across a guy in a dark alley in Area 18 who gives me this shady mission, like he's like, hey, you look like a strong lad. Would you like to help me out? I've got a little problem. I need you to go help me sort out. You could keep half of the stuff that you find there. I just need one thing from there. All right.
I lost my
like
chickens.
That kind of
Can
shit.
you go
like
catch them?
Yeah.
It's like the most basic stuff.
More basic, but that could be really fun. They could make a twist on like they're like weird xeno chicken things that have been crossbred with like Vandal DNA or something crazy.
Ooh, half Valacar, half space cow.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of thing. That's what it turns like super shady mission. But you know what I mean, like that kind of like immersive, cool experience you've seen in other video games, other MMOs, where you're running across people and stumbling across like some of the best experiences I've ever had in more open world video games and MMOs is just stumbling across a mission, stumbling across some story that was always felt like it was there and part of the world. And I became part of it because I found it and wanted to find out more about it.
Yeah.
We still don't have that kind of thing. They're starting to get to it. To be fair, I think this is a really positive thing. They have made they made a good effort towards making better content and creating a content library for us to go to. But I would say that we need a lot more, and we need a lot better still.
Agreed. Like this kind of all came from this talk of social tools and how they're developing the game and whether or not they should be fixing it or adding more to it, and people having problems with content being added. And I think one of the biggest places where the topics of content being added and the game being fixed is in instancing. And the first application of that we're seeing is Siege of Orison. You guys see where this is going, right? Let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing from the instanced Siege of Orison and how it's different from the old Siege of Orison, and most importantly, if they should be adding it. People are like, the game's broken. Why are you adding more content? Is this a good addition to becoming in 4.10, and how do you think they're doing on delivering it?
Well, if you're one of the very few people who watched my video covering it, thank you for watching. But if you haven't, you may be surprised to know.
He says the size of a small town.
Nope, like my Siege of Orison videos always do terrible, and this particular one did so badly. My video covering the drama following the SEL that covered that event got like 4 times more views than the video I took a week to make with like highly produced like video in it. I got people together to do.
As somebody who makes videos, watching that video, I could tell you probably spent hours on hours trying to get the shots, because setting up shots in a place of combat, already difficult. Setting up shots in a broken place of combat in Star Citizen, stupidly difficult. So
exactly. There was a lot of getting shot in trying to make that video I made, but anyway, I actually think it's excellent. And I remember seeing back when I first did a Siege of Orison video, I said in it that I think this would work a lot better as an instance. I never said that I wanted to limit it to 4 people. I've got a strong opinion, I think, on that. I would like to have seen it a little bit bigger, but I will say this. I think it's very hard for CIG or any developer to make an open world multiplayer mission that is a linear experience with linear progression and objectives work, because oftentimes what happens, and this is what happened in the original, is that unless you were in the beginning of the front of the group or working with that group that in the front, you would not be able to participate or make any meaningful impact on that experience. You would always be chasing the group in front of you to try to experience that event. If you remember back on the last Siege of Orison, it was very cool to have those experiences where you'd run across somebody who needed your help. You could pick them up and then work together from there. That was super great. I love that part of Star Citizen, and I miss that from Siege of Orison. However, the majority of the experiences that I had, and I think the majority of the community experienced, I know I'm speaking for some people here, and I try not to do that, but I guarantee, I'm almost 100% sure that most of your experiences were that you were not seeing the bosses. You were only seeing the pop-up saying the boss has been killed. Yeah. Or like you would get 2 loot boxes, they'd all been looted. You would go across a field and all the guys were already dead. That was the experience of it. Unless you were like there right when the event started. And even if you were, you'd have to be sprinting, and you'd actually see, like, you might stop and shoot somebody, but then somebody sprints past you because you already killed that guy. That guy's focused on you. The guy's sprinting past you, and he goes and opens the box. You didn't even be able to get the loot, right? In the box that he just sprinted past you to get.
It was a really Orison.
And I know some people, we had to sacrifice not having those fun interactions with people. But I think the positive is that now you're always the first group. You're always the first person to experience each objective, and you feel like each part of that is you're making a meaningful contribution to the progression of it. And I think one of the things that 4 people enables is that it's much easier to balance around. Because if you have a group that can vary in size from 1 to 20, for example, it's hard to balance an experience around 1 to 20 unless you develop some kind of scaling tech. And that's really hard to do when you are dealing with environments, right? Because environments can't easily scale at all. It's usually when you have auto scaling for experiences, they scale by adding more enemies to make it harder for larger groups of people. Maybe that's not super hard for CIG to do, but I think it would be kind of difficult with the size of the locations, because they're already really packed with people right now for the 4-person. How much more packed could you possibly get it? I mean, there's like people at every corner, every barrier on each of the platforms, right? How many more people could you realistically put to make it balanced for 20 people? I don't think you can, unless you completely redo how big those platforms are. And then it's just too big, right? Like remember the old version, one of the platforms was massive, and it was such a pain to try to find the boss because they would spawn randomly in different locations. So a lot of the time, even if you were the first group, you'd be running around like for a long time trying to find the guy to kill. And it would just feel like you were just kind of treading water a bit. So like I get why they did it that way, and I think they did a really good job. I think all the way they designed each of the platforms was compelling. The first platform, you're learning kind of like the basics of each objective, like the 2 towers that you have to find to swap flip the switch. One of them required a fuse, and the other one you had to use either a multi-tool with a salvaging bit or your gun to shoot off the lock on it, right? Those 2 different mechanics, but they're in like open areas. You're kind of introduced to the idea of what they are, what you might have to do when you find them. And then the next platform, they don't tell you where they are. They're not obvious. And the way to get them is like less obvious. You kind of have to like explore a little bit. One of them, I think you had to find like a fallen rooftop adjacent to it and like get to it, right? I think it was a really clever way to do it. Each of the platforms also gets progressively more difficult. So like the second platform, they added the dogs, which when they bite you, they do like 50% health damage. Like they do a ton of damage. If they bite you twice, you're dead. At least that's my experience. And I think it was in medium armor, right?
I love that. They really bite you, you turn around and they're not there because they desynced 40 meters away. Yeah. Like speaking independently of the bugs right now, just talking about the balance and idea behind it and the design of the locations and the NPC, the placements, I think it was all really well done. I like the idea of like the sniper nests is a new thing that we haven't had before. What do you think of those lights that they put on the snipers to make them visible?
I think that's good. I don't like them on players, but I like them on NPCs. I think it helps you, because one of the problems with Star Citizen is that there's a lot of detail, and that means that things often get lost visually. A lot of those NPCs, I don't know if you had this experience, but it's kind of hectic. Like you can't see the NPCs where they are and if they're shooting at you and where they're shooting at you from. It can be a little bit frustrating until you get used to it and you take it a little bit more slowly. So I think it helps a little bit for figuring out where they are and whether or not they present a threat. I think it's definitely a bit more gamified. I'm okay with it. I'm sure some people would say, no, it should be full milsim and you shouldn't have any kind of thing like that. And I understand that argument, but I'm fine with it. I don't really care. I care more that the NPCs don't pose as much of a threat as they probably should, even in 30 FPS servers.
It also gives them the ability to show us what it's like. Those could be low-level snipers now, right? You could have high-level snipers that are harder to find.
True. Yeah, that you could do that as well. Yeah. And then I think the boss battle was a really, really great idea. Like the way they did it, the way he pops in and out in their phases, and he has like you have to wait till he comes out, and he's got weaknesses and whatever. It's like felt like a more traditional MMO boss battle. Star Citizen's janky as hell. Yeah, I know, and that was a problem. But I think the concept of it, if it were working correctly, would be good. I like it. I liked it. And I like that they also, that the third platform, the last boss platform, was more about, was definitely still about FPS combat, but was also about like the spatial experience, a little bit of platforming, figuring out how to get through the shipping containers, right, to get to the objective. I thought that was an interesting thing to throw in, because the other platforms are a little bit more easy and straightforward and how to get your objective, go from A to B, find the things in there, right? The last ones were like, how do I get across without dying? Because they're pits that I could fall into and die. They added the respawn things, which I thought was a great idea too, even though they don't work. They don't work at all, but the concept's great. I like that. And then the boss battle is like, if you fail it, you lose completely the whole things. I like that too. a bit more hardcore at the end part of it, not as forgiving, but I think it has to have that not as forgiving segment where you got to, yeah, you got to work together on that part or you're going to lose. You know, you don't get the good loot at the end.
I think building, like, there's got to be consequence. That's the number one thing I think most people are looking at instancing tech being brought in, looking at the way that the medical system is being made, looking at the way that they're clearly gamifying systems and making them easier for more casual players, and thinking, please still have consequence in here. Part of, I see so many people will be like, who finds this fun? Name a mechanic. Who finds this fun? Who finds the idea of permadeath fun? Who finds sickness fun? Who finds blah 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 fun? And it's like, who found the first health bar in the game to be like, yay, we have limited life now? Actually, that might have been, maybe it helped them get away from getting one hit killed. But point being, there's a lot of stuff in a game that's not exactly meant to be fun. It makes other things feel more impactful, right? And taking away your life for the boss battle is at least something that makes it feel like you're accomplishing something a little bit more difficult, especially when they're adding in checkpoints throughout the map.
Yeah, I think the reason why I like this in this situation is because it respects your time. It respects your time a lot more. It still takes, like, if you're moving efficiently, around 2 hours to do this, and 2 hours is a pretty big chunk of time. Yeah, independent of the buildup of getting people together, which I would say is another hour, right? So basically it's like tools. 3 hours, right? Social, if you had social tools, yeah. So like, I think they have to do things like that to respect your time a bit more with these sorts of bigger events.
That's a really, really interesting question. This game has lived and honestly funded a lot of money off of building an audience that wants to see a certain type of game, a certain type of way that it plays. And I'm not saying any of this goes against what they've talked about, but instancing, medical beds, the lights on the snipers to make them more visible to see, these all, to some people, could feel like CIG saying, hey, we couldn't figure out how to make the old system work, so we're just going to go with a more traditional sense that maybe isn't quite as in line with what we've been saying over the last decade. Case in point, the fact that they're changing Siege of Orison, right? Is that them saying they understand now what Siege of Orison is supposed to be and how it's supposed to play? Or is it them admitting that their idea of what this MMO was supposed to be can't work how they wanted it to?
I don't think that's at all what that means. I don't think it means that it can't work. I think that's been a take by some people in the community, but I think that's a silly take. They're doing this because some types of linear content is better to be instanced, whereas other content is better to be open format and sandbox. So for example, Hathor would not work as an instance. And the whole part of Hathor and the interest of it, the risk of it, is because it's an open experience. And I don't think they're ever going to make Hathor an instanced experience. That is purely designed around the open sandbox environment, and there's a place for that. But I think there also needs to be a place for more mission linear experiences that take a larger amount of time, like 2 hours, like for the Siege of Orison, that needs to have an instance in order for you to have those linear objectives, like I laid out. That's well balanced, and that balance can only come from doing instancing that's limited to 4 people, or like a limited amount of people, right? So I think there's going to be both. This is certainly something I would have loved somebody to ask at that SCL. I would love to see video content cover these types of very interesting questions, but I think the answer will be, I'm almost 100% sure the answer will be, is that there'll be both. There'll be places for both. Yeah. Instancing is not, so too. Like, the game's not becoming instanced. It's just certain things are going to be instanced.
There is a lot of fear that there won't be a sandbox part of this game, an economy to build off of, throw commodities around, get into battles with friends, all that kind of stuff. You still feel like that's a pretty main part of this game going forward.
I think that's still going to be the case, because how could it not be? There's so much of the game that's open, and you couldn't build an instance around everything. You couldn't put everything in a box. So I think people are overreacting if that's their take on it.
What? We don't
Yeah.
We don't do that.
What?
You're crazy. Overreact? You're crazy, Morphologis. We never Shut your mouth. I'm sorry. It is in our blood.
It's okay. No.
Let's circle back around to something else you were talking about. I want to pick on crafting because I feel like this is.
Before we move on, though.
Yes.
Are we going to talk about the SCL then later and what we found from the SCL based on the Siege of Orison? Or are we just going to go move into crafting and come back to it? Like, how do you want to do that?
We can talk about that too briefly. The SCL, the Siege of Orison. What did we learn from that? Yeah, go ahead. Let me.
I don't want to. I've done a whole video on it, so I don't want to go too much into it. The obviously what happened between Jared and Ollie was not great. My take on it was that that he didn't like the way it went, and he kind of threw it on Ollie unfairly at the end of it, saying it's your show when he introduced the show as if it was his own. Maybe that's not what Jared was thinking, but that's certainly how it came off. And it just didn't come off well. And Ollie definitely had his own problems. He definitely could have performed better. I went through it in my video where I had some ideas like how he could prepare better for the next one. And, not to worry. He kind of has to wrangle a bit as a host for the developers, especially with Elliot, because Elliot's kind of a wild card and he's hilarious, but British humor is a bit dry and sometimes can be hard to deal with. But Ollie's also a Brit, so like he should be used to that, right? But yeah, like that thing is, I think we've already talked about. But the thing that I think a lot of people are also upset with this is that it showed the game in a perfect state because it like probably presumably had almost no ping for them. They were still seeing desync and problems with the game. But one of the things that occurred to me and why I wanted to stop here before we moved on is because I was thinking about like why does the AI look this bad? Why are they still performing bad? I think the AI has been tuned around Squadron 42 as single player experience because I'm guessing that the problems with AI that we're seeing are more about the AI not having code that tells them accurately or gives them a proper threat assessment for what they should be focusing fire on. I'm guessing that if you went into Siege of Orison solo, that they would all be shooting at you right when you came around a corner. They'd be shooting at you well. You would never see them aimed off in some weird direction. They'd just be shooting at you, right? It'd be much harder. But I think the problem is that when you introduce, when you get more than one person and they're like, you get closer to an NPC, right? And your friend's off to the left shooting, they'll pop out. And even though they see you, they're still like focused on that other guy. Because for some reason, the code doesn't have threat assessment to tell the AI, oh, there's a guy closer now. You should probably focus on him because he's going to kill you. And I think that's one of the big problems with AI. I mean, obviously, it just shows that the AI is not as well developed as it should be. But I think this also maybe shows that trying to do trickle down development from Squadron 42 has some serious limitations. And this could be one of them. That the AI just does not work for a multiplayer experience. It works better for a single player experience. They've got a lot of work to do to make it work for Star Citizen. So yeah, that's my take on it. Like, clearly, there's a lot to work on in the game, but we kind of knew that going into it. But it just is kind of crazy to see, like the grenade problem, for example, like how the grenade deep out of your hand. Like, what the hell? How can that be so bad?
That was the best freaking moment to see. It was just like, of course, yeah. Why are you even throwing a grenade? It's just going to explode in your hands. This is what Star Citizen does. It's just a freaking backspace button.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like, where'd my gun go? Hey, I'm trying to swap. Why can't I swap? Reload's not working. Like all these things that we experienced in the regular game they were experiencing. So clearly there's a lot of problem with the code of the game that they need to solve.
Yeah. And people take that as if there are, it's not necessarily to say that it is so bad it can't be fixed. It's more so that, well, if these problems are with the game code, then how is the rest of the game going to be? How is Squadron 42 going to be? There's a very tempting draw to look at that and assume that's how the rest of the game is. Do you think that?
Yeah, and I think that the thing is like, no, not at all. I think the problem is that's, like I just told you, Squadron 42 is developed around a single player experience, a story-driven experience. It's not an open world or co-op experience. So the AI are designed for that. And by the way, they have different UI, different mobiGlas. Like they've got a whole bunch of different stuff, and they've actually shown us this stuff. They've told us that it's different. So clearly it's like they've designed, this is not really a good indication at all of what Squadron 42 is going to play like. Because it's a multiplayer experience. It's so different.
Yeah.
So I think it could be bad for different reasons. I'm not saying it's going to be amazing and not to worry about because of Squadron 40, like the way Star Citizen is playing right now, that, you know, I'm not saying that it doesn't indicate Squadron might be not good. But I'm saying that's probably not as related as some people think.
Yeah. It's at this point, I think they're even working on a different flight model in Squadron. I think that they branched off the flight model from Squadron years ago, and it is much easier than in Star Citizen's flight model because they want people to go and like casually pick that game up, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's probably much more arcade-like, I'm guessing, in Squadron 42.
I would think so. So the SCL, it focused on the gameplay, and I think that was the biggest change. Was just that it was not them sitting in two chairs talking about stuff, which we hear a lot in Star Citizen Live. It was people actually playing the game, something we used to see a lot more in Star Citizen's history. But I think it really helps people feel some like connection and solidarity to the folks who are playing, and that it is a good format to make sure that people feel that connection and feel like the devs are playing their game, but it also proved to give us less information. Do you think it's a format that could work, that they should keep trying to do, or are the talk shows better still?
Absolutely. If Siagi's take from this is never do it again, they've got the wrong take on it. I think that the problem was the execution of the format, and there needs to be some tweaking of the format here. The problem and maybe the thing is I'm really worried about is that Jared is now in marketing, and he's got a very marketing head now. And he feels much more aloof and disconnected from the community, I think, than he's ever felt before. What this does is it brings SCL back to feeling more connected with the community, because as you said, they're experiencing what we experience. It feels more genuine, right? How they could improve this format, how this format could be better, is by speaking directly to whatever they encounter. And for Ali, as the host of these types of SCLs, to have questions prepared or be able to, on the fly, give a contextual question. It's like, oh, I noticed that we just ran into this problem with this particular thing that you guys could be responsible for. What are your thoughts on this, and how might you think this could be, like, how do you think this could be improved? Like these sorts of like off the cuff questions, I think Ali needs to learn how to do, or have some prepared ahead of time to ask. And then also to address directly bugs. Like if there's a bug, like, oh, I noticed that bug's happening. Have you guys been working on that? I was like, oh yeah. That's something we've not been able to work on recently, but it's definitely something we've got on the list, or like that kind of thing. Being more candid about the state of the game, talking more honestly about it on the SCL. I think it would make people feel, I think, a bit more connected with them, and it would make them feel more honest, because look at all the problem with the most recent Star Citizen content that they've been posting on the YouTube channel is it's becoming more and more marketing. Like think of the majority of the videos they've posted this year are all ship videos, or like inside the ships. And I love the ship team talking about ships, don't get me wrong, but it feels pure marketing. Like it just feels so much like I'm being sold a ship. And I want them, the game's still in development. It's not done yet. So cool, you want to sell me a ship, but tell me a bit more about like the gameplay around the ship that you're designing and how that's going. What's the development? What does it look like right now? What's your vision for these certain types of things? Like how is your vision for the continuation of development of salvage looking? How are you thinking of expanding mining and how it connects to more properly to crafting, and base building? Like these are the things that they need to be talking and chatting about on these Star Citizen Lives or Inside Star Citizens. Just feels like we've not been there for a long time.
Yeah, I was gonna say it almost sounds just like the old shows, how they used to do it.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. Like, I think Jared might have been upset because it looked so unpolished and it didn't feel like a proper marketing video to sell people on the game. But that's how the videos felt 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, right? They were so, look back on those old videos, they're still on the YouTube channel. They're so unpolished. It's not like the mics don't sound very good. They're kind of awkward talking into the camera. Some developers clearly
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, there's such a weirdness, but it was kind of like, it was endearing. Like it's like, yeah, they're just people, and they're making a video game, and it feels honest. It doesn't that.
Well, the stuff that makes people feel the best right now, generally, whenever the company puts it out, are like the messages on Spectrum, where people are like, yada yada yada, this is what I've seen, and this is what I want to do to fix it. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but if a dev comes on and says something, like whenever Benoit comes on and makes a post about some of the stuff that they're seeing, people are like, yes, this is what we want. And I think more of that, like you're saying, just acknowledging that stuff on these gameplay sessions would really help, especially now that they're taking this angle that we're bringing in senior leadership to talk about bugs, and we're gonna go for the root causes and not just the symptoms. Like, they need to reflect this kind of culture, I think, across all of their mediums of communication to convince this player base.
Absolutely, yeah. So more of this, more of that, CIG. If anybody that's from CIG ends up listening or watching this podcast, I like the SCL. Ali, like, I think Ali knows this too, because I'm pretty sure he watched my video on this. But like, I think he shouldn't be discouraged from what happened, and she should continue to try to develop this format. I would love to see another Star Citizen live like this. I would love to see it every week, a live playthrough of the latest stuff that's coming.
I think it's good enough to do it even without a produced SCL, just as like a little video they upload of just a couple devs playing. But I understand that's a PR risk, as always. And I wonder how much of like the problem may have been with off the cuff questions. Like, they've got things that they can't ask or they can't answer, and maybe there's just too much of a control over discussing things openly. But I think there needs to be some leeway given for these Star Citizen lives, as much of as a legal risk as they may perceive it to be. There is also a risk of feeling more disconnected from the community and alienating the community with too corporatized content that feels aloof and disconnected and impersonal, when remember that the game's funding up until now has been all based off of the goodwill and goodwill of the community continuing to buy internet spaceships for exorbitant amounts of money. Imagine. Yeah, I had Yogi on this podcast once and asked questions, and maybe one or two of them were not completely planned. And I think the reaction that the community had to an answer or two probably was enough for them to just be like, we're not doing this anymore. So I don't even think they really want to have and you can see that in their content too. Less developers are able to give definitive answers on stuff. A lot of times they'll bring in Benoit to talk about the big topics, or they'll have like very specific names from the teams that are working on the various things talk, because I think they're trying less and less to have people say just stuff off the cuff, unfortunately. But I think
Jared has done a good job, I think, of being. He's been in those developer meetings. He's kind of in the pits with the devs, and he understands the way the development works. And I think he's done a good job of saying or prefacing or following up on answers or questions by saying, this is just the current state of what they're thinking, and this could change. Remember that this is just how they're envisioning right now. They're going to probably see how it works, and if it doesn't work, they're going to change it. That's how development works. So don't be too hung up on this or that, right? Like, I think even though a lot of us probably know that now after following development for so long, a lot of people don't, right? So they hang on to something that maybe a developer said, and if it doesn't turn out exactly that way, they get really upset. And I think that's like one of the problems with like how Yogi answered the questions. I don't remember any specific questions he answered that upset people, but I'm sure it was something along those lines where it didn't turn out exactly as they expected.
Oh, he just mentioned the PvP versus PvP.
Right, whatever.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. That's just one developer's opinion. And remember, this is a team effort. Aside from Chris Roberts, and even with Chris Roberts to some extent, whatever one person says is not me. That is not the definitive or end all be all of what the game is going to be. It's a team. People are going to come up with different ideas in those meetings. They're going to propose interesting ones. And I think one of the best things you can do to make a really successful design project is not to get too invested in one direction, so much so that you overlook a better one that comes along.
Yeah.
I think a lot of good developers, just as good designers, understand that.
Last point on the SCL before we get to some development talk. What do you think of the future of? I don't want to really set this up as they are a team. All we've heard, I think, is that Ollie was joining CIG to help Jared with whatever stuff they were working on. But what do you think of this team dynamic? Do you think this is a good change for SCL going forward? Do you think that they're going to make some positive improvements to their content coming out now?
They could, but I think that Jared needs to do a better job of introducing Ollie. I think that SCL was a terrible introduction. It didn't. I think the community has all been anticipating what Ollie's debut is going to look like, what his role is going to be, and I think Jared could have done a much better job of introducing him, explaining how he was going to, what his role was going to be in that Star Citizen Live. And I think it could have been, I think, like as a bigger picture, it'd be great to understand a bit better what his role is going to be going forward, just as it relates to Jared. I think people have a lot of ideas about what it is. Some people are suspecting that Ollie's going to replace Jared. That's not happening. But like how is that going to work? And I think doing it in a way that feels like friendly and working together is really important. It didn't come off that way in that Star Citizen Live. But I hope that it can in future ones where it feels like they're a team working together. And if one person stumbles, the other's there to pick them up and kind of help out, kind of smooth over any rough edges, right? I think that's what a good host and co-host do, is they help each other out. They fill in the blank spaces when there's a blank space, or if there's a stutter or somebody trips. And it just didn't feel like that. Like it just felt like one person watching the other person trip and kind of like saying, it's your fault, man, not me. Like that kind of feeling. And that did not feel good. Didn't feel good for me, and I'm sure it didn't feel good for Ollie. And I hope Jared feels that way too.
I hope they could grow on it. And I certainly hope that they keep trying these gameplay sessions. Let's circle back around to crafting. That was something that you had mentioned, and I think it's a really big part of the game that's come in, something that they're trying to use to drive a lot of activity. It is decisive. The way that they've done it might feel a little bit quirky. And I do see posts from people saying things like, CIG, what if I don't want to craft? What if I am just here to play a game and I want to still progress and get good things without having to go and do mining, or like I want something else besides blueprints as rewards? Do you think that they've shoehorned in a system that's not able to be a part of the game without feeling like it's forced on everyone?
I mean, I'm sorry, in what way? Like the crafting feels forced on people?
Yeah, I mean, people feel like the only real reward in the game is now progressing items, and so they feel I guess the two things I've seen are, I only get blueprints as rewards and I don't want them, and there's no other way for me to get better items than having to do crafting, which generally means mining.
I think that this is all comes down to them not putting the game capital G together. Is like, if we had a player-to-player trading system, would much of this still be a problem? No, because you could, if you didn't want to go and do mining, if you only want to do crafting, or if you just wanted the end product, you could go onto the player market and buy the thing you want, right? No hassle, no problem, no worries, right? Or if crafting was a lot more straightforward and easy, if you could open your app, your mobiGlas, find the crafting app to see what blueprints you have and what things you need once you're out, and then you could open the map system and go search, I need this and this. Where can I find these? What are the likely locations this could spawn? And then it tells you, okay, it's in this ring over here, or it's likely to spawn in this ring over there. Okay, go to those, and you go to those and you find them. Like, if that stuff all worked together better, it wouldn't feel like such a pain in the butt. I think people wouldn't care as much. I think right now the problem is it's such a pain to do mining, because you have to know where the right things are to mine, and you have to kind of understand mining a bit better in order to mine some of the more rare resources. Some of those resources you need to have a fully manned mole, because you can't do it with a prospector, even with an upgraded laser. You need more than one person. And that can be really frustrating for especially a new person. So it feels like the way it's been designed is great for people who love mining, but it's so inaccessible for a lot of other people. And I think that's a major problem. And I think that's maybe also comes down to like the crafting system doesn't have any kind of tiers to it. I'm not talking about the tiers of upgrades that you can do to the items themselves. I'm talking about like other games have tiers of crafted items or lower tier items that don't have as good of like an upper end at well-crafted items are easy to craft by the materials that you were able to get. So those materials are really easy to get. Maybe they take a little bit of time, but they're easy to get. And you can craft those base level items or tier 2 items. And it gets progressively harder as you get to higher tiers. Like Star Citizen doesn't have that. So it just makes the whole system so much more frustrating. And then you add on top, like I said already, that there's no player market. There's no way to really skip that. Sure, you could go to the third person player trading market, but that's itself got its own problems. The prices are hyperinflated most of the time. You can't buy stuff unless that person's online. So you have to wait till that person's online to get rid of it. It's such a faff. It's such a pain in the butt. And you could get scammed along the way too. Like who knows you're actually going to get your damn item. Because the way you've got to trade between people, you can't even trade items directly between people with a trading window. You have to like go to their hangar, drop it down. And if it doesn't fall through the floor, you might get the item, which I've had multiple times. By the way, I want to tell you a story with crafting. We had a whole night. I think we spent like 5 hours working together, mining. I had done a ton of pre-planning. I didn't release any information ahead of time because I didn't want to get stream sniped with this big group of people. We ended up still getting stream sniped, but it was really fun because we actually had a bit of a fight. But just to kind of summarize the whole experience, I had gone and created a big Excel sheet of all the locations that are likely to spawn. I had created groups of every person who was participating because I had a list of every person that was coming. I put them into strike groups for all the ones we wanted to go get. And after 5 hours, we had everything we needed to do some crafting. We didn't have enough because the yields were way lower than I would have expected for the amount of time we put in. Mm-hmm. Like searching for some of those materials with like a whole group of people, we only had enough to craft like enough armor for, I think it was like 7 people out of 40 after 5 hours of 40 people working together to do mining, right? That kind of there's like a really bad balance, I would say. And the armor, we were crafting Palantino stuff, and some people I remember seeing in the video where I covered that, they said, "Oh, that's like high tier stuff. That should take a lot of." There's no high tier stuff in the game, guys. All heavy armor is the same. Okay, it's not like more like way better or something than like a set of Morozov like crafting that. So that's a stupid take, but in my opinion anyway, sorry that I'm calling viewers stupid. I shouldn't be so mean. But it's a bad take in my opinion. It shouldn't take that long. Anyway, that's besides the point. What I was going to get to is that I'd finally crafted everything and had worked through the pain in the ass inventory system. This is post inventory update, by the way. So it's still pain in the ass to put all of the individual crafted bits of armor into different boxes so that it could be more easily traded to people. So I could put it into like a 1SU box, right? And I could pull it up on the left and say, all right, here's your box, Armco member number 1 who helped on this event. You've got your set of armor and your gun. Go ahead, right? Guess what happens first of all, guess what happens when I pull them up? I can't tell which boxes have the armor in them and which boxes don't because you can't open them from the inventory when you've got like 40 of them and actually see what's inside. It like glitches out. Yeah. When you put them on the lift, you have to go through each individual one to figure out which one's the one that's got something in it and which one doesn't have something in it. But here's what actually happened when I brought up my armor to give to people. A bunch of boxes got deleted from the server. They just disappeared off the lift forever. Classic. So like all that hard work, I think I lost 75% of the armor we crafted from it just disappearing off the cargo lift.
So all of this to say, now named a couple things here. First of all, crafting is been built to be a grind by CIG. The things take too much material instead of there being this sense that you can make a lot of stuff, but it can be difficult to make higher quality versions of that stuff. They just made it so it's hard to make everything. But this is what I talked about earlier, is like I think they had this idea in their head for it needs to take a long time. And maybe I think this is because the team that was responsible for allocating the time, and we know this is a fact as being the case, that
teams are siloed and they're not communicating directly with other teams and don't understand the resources it takes for one thing versus another thing, or how much time something's taking. But I think this is one of the problems. Maybe this comes down to the design leads that need to understand this, is that you need to look at it as a holistic system. And the amount of time and effort it takes to craft an item is just too much time. I'm sorry. It's just, it needs to be easier, because the time you're going to spend doing stuff with like setting people up, getting people ready to go, like all the problems you're going to run into, like maybe you run into a player as you're going and doing this and you have to fight them, all that stuff. You're going to spend many, many hours just to craft a gun or suit of armor that's not even that much better than everything else. Like it's such a pain. It's such a pain. And it needs to respect your time more. It needs to be faster. The game won't be any less fun if stuff's easier to craft. But
it's hard to discuss. This just goes back to that same argument that people have, where they're saying, don't add features to the game. Don't make anything new. Don't keep doing stuff for Star Citizen. Just fix what's there. And then you ask people, okay, so you don't want a player trading system? You don't want the ability to rename boxes? You don't want the ability to press a one-button player loadout so that when you are preparing to go out with your friends, you guys don't have to do a whole bunch of searching through your inventory to equip stuff? You don't want the ability to log off and on and from your friend's bed so you guys can all start from your ship? Like, these are features that have to be added. And all of these are features that would make crafting easier, they'd make playing easier, they'd make the game go faster. But then when you go to the people who are complaining about the game taking too long or being a problem, they say, no, don't add features. So what's it going to be? You know, are we going to add in things that make these things work better? Or are we just going to say anything that's already been put in the game, we can't add anything else on top of it? Those things just have to work good. And I know what CIG is going to choose, but I feel like we keep circling this problem of the fact that CIG is an incomplete game that they're selling as a complete game. And so everybody, for some reason, thinks that, not everybody, a lot of people think that this incomplete nature of the game has to be frozen for the game to work correctly, when in reality, they just got to fix these damn things, or not fix, but like implement these damn things that would, you know, make this stuff work better.
Yeah, they need to do both. Like I said already, they need to do both. They need to add new features into the game and keep bug fixing. It's just they need more people doing all those things. Yeah, they've not been able to do that with Squadron 42 weighing them down this whole time. And yeah, a lot of folks are then of the mindset that, like, we keep making the excuse that Squadron 42 is weighing them down. What if they simply can't add features and stabilize the game at the same time for whatever reason? Oh, I think they can over time. It's not going to happen right away. It's not like Squadron 42 is going to release and all the bugs are going to be fixed like right away after that happens. Squadron probably won't even release cleanly, right? It'll need post-release support. For sure. The backlog of ships, the backlog of bugs, the backlog of missing features is so massive that it's going to take them quite some time after they get all the resources focused back on Star Citizen to really get it to a good place. The only hope I really have is to see some kind of sign after release of Squadron that there is a shift of resources back and that the skeleton crew is not on Star Citizen, but on Squadron. I think that's how things should. I think they need to invert the current allocation of resources once Squadron releases. I think the majority of people following this game now feel that way. Like, even for people who are more excited for Squadron 42, I think a lot of the thought process is like, we would like that game now. You know, it's people who want Squadron 42 want to play the Squadron that they've been told has been in polishing for the last 2 years. People who want Star Citizen want to play Squadron so that they know that the company's focused on Star Citizen. Like, everybody just wants them to move past Squadron at this point. Yeah. And I hope they do. I hope they do this year, but probably not. Yeah, it's not feeling like it at the moment, but we'll see what happens. Do you think this is actually, we were supposed to have a nice long chat about this, me, you, and Kraken. Do you think that this could still be the spiritual successor to Star Wars Galaxies that folks were hoping for? I think it could be, but I guess it's the best we're probably ever going to get. I just don't think there's ever going to be another game as in-depth as Star Wars Galaxy. I think it was born out of an era of development that allowed for more interesting takes on things. And now we've moved into a much more corporatized, simplified, streamlined gaming environment that's just makes that kind of thing untenable. So I think our only hope is Star Citizen, and it's probably the closest we'll ever get, is my guess. So will it be the next, will it actually be the spiritual successor? I hope so, but I don't think it's guaranteed, because one of the things, for example, that I'm a little bit worried about is the base building system, is how in depth is that going to be, right? Are we just placing prefabbed, pre-decorated modules, or are we going to actually be able to do a little bit more in like decoration? Like we'll be able to place things a bit more uniquely, because you look at the ships, for example, the way they've done the posters. You only can put posters in specific areas that they mark up. You can't free place them. That worries me a bit. One of the things I really loved about Star Wars Galaxies and this is not the only game that's ever done it. Like there's tons of games out there that have base building or personalized housing in an MMO or video game. I love being able to like place things in unique locations and kind of make something new out of something unexpected out of things that aren't necessarily supposed to be used in that way, like making a fireplace out of a bunch of pots, for example, like something weird like that, but it looks great. It looks perfect when you do it, because you've overlapped them just right. That kind of thing is what I hope to see out of Star Citizen, but I somehow very much doubt right now.
I feel like that's incredibly important, because it allows for there to be a ton of different objects spread throughout the game, alien-themed objects, pirate-themed objects, tourism-themed objects that all allow, one difference that you make in your ship sets it apart, makes it valuable, makes it worth going out to dungeons and outposts and derelict ships to find stuff that maybe you can decorate with. And the less places we can actually put those things when we bring them back, the less important and interesting to people they are, the less reason there is to play the game.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. So I think they have a lot of opportunities to snatch. What's the phrase? Snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory.
Grab life by the balls.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that. Yeah, no, I hope that they can do that. I never played Star Wars Galaxies, but from what I've heard, it's an interesting game, and it sounds like it had a lot to drive community engagement, which is exciting.
It did. It was way ahead of its time.
Let's talk.
I'm sad that games like that are so rare now.
Yeah. Gaming. You're so weird. Let's talk about Squadron 42 a little bit more, and then we'll get around to wrapping this up. I got to get some predictions from you, of course. But I want to talk a bit about the Squadron 42 release and kind of possibility of what's going on. Obviously, Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out, and I know everybody can get started with their comments. They're not in the same genre. As we've seen, it doesn't really matter. GTA is going to annihilate all advertising dollars over the last 3 months and take up all of the airwaves and people's time writing articles. Netflix has bought the right to advertise GTA. So
that is bizarre. I've never seen anything like that before. But that just shows you how big GTA 5 has been a cultural cornerstone, a phenomenon for a huge generation of not just gamers, but totally like normies. Like tons of normies played GTA 5.
It's cultural.
And it's cultural. It's a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
And they know GTA 6 is going to be another cultural phenomenon. Can it not be anything else? Like Rockstar is well known for being able to do that. And they have the pedigree, they have the history to prove that they're going to be able to do it. I have all confidence that GTA 6 is going to be pretty amazing. It's not my type of game that I enjoy a lot. I did play a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2, by the way, and I enjoy the hell out of that game. But yeah, I think it's the problem is, I saw you posted a video on this, so I know where you're going with this. I've had the same problem with people posting about whenever I talk about it too, because I have the same perspective as you do. I think we agree here is that it doesn't matter that GTA 6 is not a sci-fi game. It's just if you're a big publisher or sorry, if you're a big news outlet, a big YouTube channel that covers general gaming news, what are you going to cover? Are you going to cover the release of the next big cultural cornerstone? Or are you going to cover Star Citizen? You're going to cover GTA 6. I'm sorry, is Squadron 42, it could be Half-Life 3. Or sorry, it could be the next coming of Half-Life. We don't know if Half-Life 3 is going to be good. But like Half-Life was such a huge cultural cornerstone for gaming back then, right? It could be another thing like it could be. But there's no way. It doesn't have the pedigree. It doesn't have the history that GTA does. So GTA is going to overshadow it. So they do have to watch out for whenever GTA 6 releases. They can't release Squadron anywhere close to that. They can't release it weeks ahead of the release or even perhaps a month or more after the release, because people are going to be talking about GTA 6 for like at least a month, in the headlines.
Yeah. And this is not about stealing players. Like, we understand they don't come out on the same console. This is strictly about advertising, which is word of mouth these days. I mean, besides, Netflix probably spending millions of dollars for 6 hours of exclusivity, there is just like every type of scenario. If you go on social media, you will see there are so many things that look like natural marketing or feel like natural marketing that sometimes is paid for and is just like something that's been injected in, but a lot of times it is just natural talk, and that's what gains momentum and that's what drives discussion. And you don't want to go up against that when you're trying to make the most of what you have. And CIG needs to make the most of what they have. They don't have a budget like Grand Theft Auto does for marketing.
Yeah, I mean, like, and just think if I put it this way, I think it'll make a lot more sense to other people who don't maybe get what we're saying here. Like, I think Squadron 42's release would be the number one headline in gaming news were it released at any time other than the release of GTA 6. If you can think about it that way, you'll know why they have to keep those separated. Because I think they want, if Squadron's going to be successful by appealing to a wider audience, which it will if it makes the number one headline, they have to give it the space to do that from GTA 6. I guarantee you Squadron 42 will be the number one headline when it releases, not because it's the most amazing game ever, but because everybody will want to see what the $1 billion game plays like. The 15-year $1 billion game. Is it good? Like, that's going to be the big question in everybody's mind. It's going to be such easy clickbait for every single game. Every single YouTube channel, every single publisher, traditional publisher, online publisher. It's going to be so easy for them. And they're going to pick it up.
Squadron 42 because you don't have to.
Exactly.
I'm going to put that on 6 different videos in 1 week because it's just constantly people are going to be like looking for the ability to, let's be real, people are going to be looking for the ability to rag on the game. Like, there's going to be compilations of bugs. I've said that too.
That is absolutely the reality. I'm sure CIG knows this too. The narrative that I think everybody is going to want to see confirmed is that they wasted $1 billion in 15 years. That is the narrative. No matter how positive you want to be about this, that is what people expect, unfortunately.
Honestly,
and that's what they're fighting against.
I think there's not really much chance that they can prove that wrong. It's real hard to justify this amount of time for a single player game.
Yeah, unless it's the best game ever released, which it won't be. There's going to be people saying the game is mid. So this is all this for like after $1 billion, ridiculous. So, like, there's going to be so many headlines like talking about what's missing and how they couldn't even do this. There'll be like side by side comparisons of water physics with GTA 6 and Squadron 42. Like, you're going to see that kind of video popping up. So it's going to be hard.
And what do you think happens if Squadron 42 comes out? And actually, no, I'm sorry. What do you think is the difference between what Squadron 42 needs to do for the company now versus when they're originally trying to launch it, or when they were trying to launch it in 2016?
I think it's like back then. I mean, right now, as back then, I think it needs to prove that they can make a video game.
Just needs to release.
it needs to release and prove that they can make a game. And I think now, because of the context of its release, with how long it's taken, how much money it's taken, it doesn't need to just be a game. It needs to be a pretty dang good one. It needs to be above mid. It needs to be above average, like B, ideally A.
Ooh, A, like 90 plus.
Yeah, I think it kind of needs to be that. If it's not, I think financially speaking, it won't hurt them. In fact, it's only going to be positive after release, because think of it this way: all of the development costs has been upfront from Star Citizen costs. Like, they've taken all the money from ship purchases, right? That's where the money's come from Squadron, to develop Squadron. So once it releases, it's only positive money beyond that. You know, aside from having to pay back the loans they took out, which I think is like a little under 100 million, which I think they've already made enough profit these past 2 years to pay those off if they wanted to. They're just going to make positive money after that. Whether or not it drops off a cliff a year afterward, I think is going to, that's the thing that I think Squadron 42 is going to do. If Squadron 42 is really bad, I think that they're going to get a blip in funding from Squadron, but then everything could fall off a cliff. Like, if it's super bad and everyone's like, shows it as an example that Star Citizen, CIG doesn't know what they're doing, interest in Star Citizen is just going to evaporate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, against the hardcore people, no, but they won't be able to sustain the size that they have going forward. They're going to have to considerably shrink the offices down, considerably narrow the scope of the future of the project. Like it'd be devastating. It will be devastating if that's what happens. So
yeah, I
cannot
agree.
And I think that's one thing that I hope that I can kind of communicate before I go, because full disclosure here, I've been invited to the playtest this year in October. I hope that I can properly convey to people that I'm communicating my experiences with beforehand that there's way more riding on this than I think a lot of people realize. I think this is going to determine the future of both games. How this plays out. It's really scary, you know, like if I go there and it's not if it's really bad, I don't know. You guys will know, because you'll see in my expression. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to this knowing how important this is.
The narrative that the people who go can't express disappointment is insane to me, because I don't think there's anybody who hasn't been disappointed. I mean, I guess the worry is that people will like sugarcoat their disappointment, but there's nothing really to lose at this point. I think you're right. If Squadron's not good, CIG is in a very, very bad place, because I mean, despite what you said about them making a lot of money to be able to pay back investors, I don't think they can. They had $5 million in cash at the end of 23. They had 71 million pounds. Sorry, not dollars, pounds, as like a put option against the company. They couldn't pay that back right now. And if Squadron's not good, not only then do we have to worry about, are the investors still having confidence in this? We also have to now worry about how the heck they're going to fund the game, because that means that they're going to have to double down on chip sales, right? That would be money that they were probably thinking that was going to come from Squadron selling, which I think is part of what they expected when they bought all their new offices and expanded their team to more employees. I think they expected Squadron to come in and give them a nice pile of cash to help with that. And if it doesn't turn out to go well, the next 2 years would have to rely so much more on ship sales. They'd have to cut down workforce, which means less things getting fixed because they still have to add features. I think it'd be catastrophic. So I think if anybody isn't talking about the game in October when they do show it off, not talking about it in a true light, is going to look like an absolute clown later on.
The thing is that, like, when I said, like, I think they'll be able to pay it back, that doesn't mean that the game will succeed. I'm saying, like, they're going to make enough money, I think, to pay back their investors, but that doesn't mean at the end of it, the Star Citizen and Squadron come out well.
Yes.
Like, because what they could do is they could fire more than half the staff, sell the office, move everybody temporarily into working remotely while they find a smaller office, right? Or they could like they've got 3 floors. They could rework it where they only keep one of the floors for development. They rent out the other 2, right? To try to pay off, like work out the difference in cash they have to pay, whatever they're paying every month for that. And then sell ships until it trickles off into nothing. And eventually I think they'll pay off everything. But the thing is the game, like the scope will be just gone. Like they will have to kind of finish things as they are right now, basically. Like you see how long it takes for them to develop new features. Basically, the game we have right now is what the game will end up being as it finished. I think all the bugs will be fixed, probably most of them, right? But then it'll just have tons of holes in it with tons of missing features.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes, but I do think that it's an incredibly important and risky time for CIG. One thing we know is that like Squadron 42 is going to look really good. It's going to sound really good. The music's going to be amazing. The acting's probably going to be pretty good. I think it's really the stability and the stability, writing, and gameplay that is kind of the scary part.
So everything, really.
Well, the graphics are good, huh?
The graphics are good,
screenshots. Yeah, I'll just not watch. I'll just listen to the good voice acting and watch some screenshots afterward. Great video, great game. No, I don't know. We'll see. But let's go ahead and wrap this up with some predictions for the rest of the year that we can come back to maybe next time you pop on the show, of really just what you're thinking we might see over the next, say, 1-2 months or so. The release of 410 and 411. Any big predictions?
We already saw the 411 thing, right? So we know that the Planet Tech V5 is coming out supposedly with 411.
Star Wars not on the roadmap. There might be some other stuff that they add in there or remove, or maybe there's a prediction about Squadron 42 or Gamescom. Could be anything.
My confidence level is at an all-time low. Again, it's fallen down, and I just don't know what I'm not confident they're going to be able to do anything else really that interesting.
Lower than when you were going into CitizenCon 2023?
Pretty close to it. I'd say we're pretty close. Okay. It's just like because they've not been able to execute. Like, how can it be anything but going back to that level? Because they've just not executed on the plan that they outlined, really. And we've had a trickle of the things that they talked about, but some of the more important things, as we discussed, have not made their way into the game. Yep. And I don't think back in 2023 when we had that discussion, could you have imagined we'd be where we are now? Then?
No.
Dude,
if you had told me at that point that we would not have FPS radar and scanning by 2026.
Yeah. That's wild.
It's ridiculous.
Like I lose track of all the things they talked about and we still don't have. Yeah. It's so disappointing. So I don't know, man. I mean, like, I guess I'm going to be glad we have pretty planets, but I'm sure they're just going to be pretty planets with very little going on in them. So
is that your prediction?
Cool as they're going to look. Yeah, pretty planets with not much going on it.
All right. Dangerous, because there is some whispers and murmurs about Starkitect and the new mission system.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure it'll be good. Like the Starkitect technology will be good. I have complete faith in Ian. But I am not convinced about the content itself being populated, because that's not up to him. It's up to other teams to make sure there's content to be populated through the Starkitect system. You know what I mean? Like Starkitect can populate the surface with certain things, but the things you need to plug them in. You need to plug them into Starkitect for that to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm hoping with the mission system they give us things to do there. Otherwise, it'll just be basic.
Yeah. So we just get the bunkers we have everywhere else, right? But they're now populated automatically, I guess. Okay, cool. They're populated. I don't know. Like, my expectations are really low right now.
So I've got you on the new planet. Nix 1 is going to be glitchy when it arrives.
Glitchy? No, it's gonna be glitchy.
Empty.
It's gonna be pretty. Just not much to do on it.
All right, I got you down. We shall see. I do hope that they pull through with the mission system on that one. Otherwise, it's going to be boring just flying to go see locations and not much else. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
just one more thing. You remember, like they've been building up in the lore about base building too, if you've been paying attention to that. And I guarantee base building's not in that patch because they would have said base building's in that patch.
Wait, what do you mean they've been building up?
And it said like people are making claims on Nyx 1.
Oh.
Claims are out of control. Like
no, I think
land
those
claims.
I think that's for the faction. I think they're just setting up a new faction with that.
I thought that they were trying to say base building was gonna, like, they were thinking about doing eventually base building with the release of Nyx. That's what when they talked about it back in 2023 when they were showing off like the tech in its infancy with base building and Nyx. My impression that I got from that was they were going to try to release Nyx along with base building, like that. Those things were going to follow closely. Now I'm completely not confident in either of those things.
I never got the idea that they were going to launch base building with Nyx. Trying to think back of what they showed in 2023. That was the Todd Pappy.
I'm talking about the Nyx
right?
planet, not Nyx system. Sorry, I need to be more specific. Nyx 1, like when they released the planets.
No, that was 24. Right when they first showed us Planet Tech V5. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're talking about.
It was 2024. Yeah. My impression was they were gonna like planets come out, then they do the base building with it. So.
Way to disappoint yourself.
Right. Yeah. No, that's the impression I got, but I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so optimistic.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna have base building in 310 or 410, 411, whatever. But hopefully they do have more missions at the locations. We shall see.
Yeah. We shall see.
Thank you so much for joining me, dude. I appreciate it. I know it. What time is it over there? It's probably pretty late.
12 a.m.
Jesus freaking. Everybody give it thanks. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for staying up to talk about video games that don't release on your Friday night. It's much appreciated. Can you let everybody know where they can find more of your content and discussion?
You can find my salty butt on Twitch and on YouTube, but not to be confused with Salty Mike. I am Salty Morph. No, I'm just Morph. Just Morphologis. You can find me on YouTube and Twitch.
Salty Butt. Now known as Salty Butt. Stand by. Hold on, everybody, just so I can make sure you get to the right location. Go ahead and give that a look on Twitch and YouTube, guys. Give him a follow. Check him out. Does the best architect reviews and a grade A streamer. Thank you again for joining me. It's always a good time, dude. I freaking came into Star Citizen watching you talk about this game, and it's always a little bit of a shock that I get to now just sit here and chat with you about it. So thanks for taking the time, dude. I appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the podcast, for watching, for checking it out. If you don't like YouTube or ads, we have an audio podcast. It's on all the things, Spotify, Apple, all the different places. If you have other people who maybe like space games or Star Citizen and you want to get them a little bit deeper into the freaking honey trap, send them a link. Maybe drop a review. Let us know what you think of the show. And thank you so much for watching. This will be my last show without a baby boy with me. So next time, I'll be able to tell you guys all about him. Thanks again for joining. See you in the next one.
My pleasure. You have to say it's your show, and then I do the outro awkwardly.
Well, now we've got a dual outro.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Man. And hey, my pleasure is always to join you on the podcast. I always love talking to you, man. And congratulations. I wish the best of luck to you and your wife with everything going forward, the baby, and with you being able to continue to do content when you have a baby boy in your house. I'm sure that's going to be a brand new, wonderful challenge in your life. So
yes, we will see how that goes. I feel like this podcast will never be different or the same. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us for this long outro. See you in the next one. Bye.